everybody, Gina DeLuca here. All right, today I am doing a surprise straight pour, not using a spinner today. Going to stretch the paints the old-fashioned way by tilting. The colors I am using today, this is the Quinacridone Magenta. However, I wanted to tone that down a bit. So the background / base coat color is Quinacridone Magenta with a bit of Liquitex Basics and Amsterdam Permanent Blue Violet. So it is a mix of these colors. It makes a very lovely deep magenta plum color. So hopefully I get my reaction that I'm looking for. Should be fine. These three colors here are Phthalo Blue by Liquitex Basics mixed with DecoArt Satin Enamel, the Americana Decor Satin Enamels in pure white. So the way I do this, I do 50% regular paint, 50% satin enamel, and then I add my Floetrol and water to get the consistency that I'm looking for. So this color is about 50% satin enamel, 50% phthalo blue. And then these colors have more, I've added titanium white to it to make it brighter. So these three colors would be like a monochromatic pour, but because I am using other colors, it's not technically monochromatic. My cells will be. And then I also have here this little Piggy in Persephone, which is a beautiful magenta. When it dries, it will be much more striking. When you add the Floetrol to it, Floetrol has a milky look to it, so for certain colors, when you mix it in, it's going to appear different than it will when it's dry. And this color here is this little Piggy and Unicorn. So this is a blue with like a magenta flash. The pigments I mixed by adding a bit of Jo Sonja gloss varnish to the bottom of my cup. I add the pigment to that. I mix that together, just enough to cover the bottom of the cup for the varnish. I turn it into a paste, and then I add the DecoArt modeling paste in matte. You can use gel gloss or basically any kind of thicker acrylic medium. So that gives it the consistency of tube paint, and then I add a Floetrol to that. So I do 2 parts Floetrol to 1 part paint. So if I'm doing 1 ounce of paint, I do 2 ounces of Floetrol. And then I add water to that until I get the consistency that I'm looking for, which is, this is about a 2 on my consistency scale. It is making a mound, but it disappears pretty quickly. It's making a nice thin, even stream off of my stick. If the stream is getting thick and thin, that means your consistency is inconsistent and you need to keep on mixing. Before we get started, have you seen the Fluid Art inspiration cards? If you have, you can fast forward about a minute, but if you have not, what we have are 52 cards. There are 42 technique cards, and each technique card has an associated video here on YouTube that gives you the exact paint, brand, color, consistency, the recipe, of course, the technique, all of the things that I can't fit onto a card. This is a picture of the painting in that video. This box contains a tip for this particular technique, and here at the bottom you have the color palette that was used in this painting. These 2 boxes can be used together as the basis of a 2-color palette, or you can build off of those colors. And there are 8 bonus color palette cards. Each one has 5 color palettes. You can use all of the colors or just some of the colors. Mix and match the bonus color palette cards with the technique cards, and you have more combinations than you could ever paint in a lifetime. These are available at my website, ginadeluca.net, and also at amazon.com. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is put some paint in my cup. I like to make sure that I have enough to get the reactions that I need. Sometimes I put too much on my canvas and then don't have enough for my pour, so this is a way to avoid that. All right, going to lay down my base coat. It is okay that the edges are a different color. Still in the family. The reason I cover my edges first is because when I mix for a straight pour, it is a thin mix. And I'm using Floetrol. And that combination does not always give you the best coverage on the sides of your canvas. So I would rather just cover the sides first than need to touch it up later. I like to troubleshoot before there's trouble. The reason we lay down a base coat is because I want the paints to slide around easily on this canvas and evenly. If you do not have a base coat, what happens is something has to stick to the canvas first. If it is not your base coat, then it will wind up being your poured puddle, and the edges of your poured puddle will stick to the canvas, and then the paint that is in the center of the puddle will roll over top of the edges of the puddle. This can also happen if you are tilting too quickly. So if you're using a base coat and you find that to be happening, slow your roll. Okay, I need a bit more. I do like to reserve some paint in my cup, so I have a bit of that color to pour on top in the cup, so all of my cell makers have a chance to react. Cell makers, I'm using matte paints with a glossier paint, so this background color is glossier than the DecoArt paints, and probably the pigments because I used a matte medium. And that is how I get cells without silicone. Okay, going to pop some of these bubbles. When you light your torch, do not light it while it is pointing at your canvas. This can lead to scorching. That first blast that comes out can be pretty hot. Okay, time to put some paint in a cup. I will not be using all of the paints in the cup. I need to try to get to about 12 ounces. So I'm going to pour from up high. Try to get these paints to sink and churn. This shade of blue with magenta is just lovely. Always be sure to check your consistency before pouring. The sauce may thicken upon standing. Okay, I'm actually going to add the unicorn. And and the Persephone before I put in that last DecoArt mixture. This doesn't necessarily look like it's going to blend. It looks very rusty in this mix, but when it dries, it is a beautiful magenta. Okay, pouring from up high. I like for this last color to make it all the way to the bottom. If you're not comfortable with pouring from up high, you can practice in your sink just using water. Just have a cup full of water and pour it into your cup. That will get you acclimated. I used a 10 bar, so it's a little on the easy side for me. Okay, I'm going to pour some of this base coat color on top here so it can react with those paints. I like to still try to leave a little bit in the cup just in case I need something for my corners, but this is going to be enough paint for sure. I will have some overflow. All right, let's make a mess, shall we? I'll just do some slow ring action here. This is not going to be a perfect spiral because I am not on a square or a circle, but I do like when those colors get a little more evenly distributed. As I get towards the bottom of my cup, I will get closer to the canvas. That will give me more control. I like to be very careful when I get to the end, as this is going to be my focal point. Okay, that'll do. Time to pop bubbles. And this is where patience is a virtue. So what happens here, as this sits, there are air bubbles in the paint and the underlying layers. When those air bubbles come up, it's going to bring some of the paint with it. And because these satin enamels have a hydrophobic effect, it will push the other paints away and those cells will get bigger. And when I let them sit and get bigger on the canvas, when I stretch them, I get very cool looking boulder cells. They look very 3D. I could just stretch it now and I will get a mess of pearl cells. I'll still get a ton of cells, but they would be more uniform in shape and size, and I love how boulder cells look like stones. And I can only get that by allowing this to develop. Let the paint puddle percolate, let the cells develop before I stretch them. And you see, every time I torch this, I get a bunch of tiny cells. I will say this, these paints were, most of them anyway, were already mixed. They were pre-mixed from another painting and left over. And I am at the end of the jar on the DecoArt. So sometimes when you get towards the end of the jar, it doesn't quite have the same cell making oomph. It still makes cells, but it's not quite as strong as it is when it's a fresh jar. So you can see I am getting cells. That is not a concern. Sometimes I actually prefer it because I want some of the background color to still show through. When it's, you know, coming off so strong, it just swallows up all of the background color and you're just left with cells. For this painting, I would like for the background color to stick around because it's the contrast between that deep magenta plum color and the blue. It's very striking. This little thing here looks like a little dolphin. Little dolphin face. And I know it's hard. It is hard to just sit there and watch your paint, just waiting for it to do the things. But patience will pay off in a straight pour, absolutely. The more patient you are, the happier you will wind up being with your painting. All right. Well, I think I have enough to work with here, and I won't mind if I still have some of that background left. So I think I might be ready to give this a stretch. One more pop of the bubbles. All right. I think I'm going to do, which corner first? I usually do this corner first. I don't know why. I just feel like it sets up better that way. And again, I'm going to tilt very, very slowly. I don't want the paints to roll over top of each other. I could have used a corner catcher there, but I'm not worried about not having enough cells, and I'm not worried about not having enough paint, so I'm okay with this. Already, those cells look amazing. Now I'm going to bring the paint back to center. The weight of the paint is what I am using to push the rest of the paints around. The weight of the paint is going to be where it's moving the fastest. Bringing the weight of the paint back to center is going to help you keep your composition, and it's going to keep your cells from getting wonky. It will prevent you from getting those squiggly lines. And again, back to center. The first corner and the last corner are kind of the hardest. usually the last corner because you don't have as much paint on your canvas, so it moves a little slower, but I had a lot of paint on here, so it's still moving. And I did tilt quite a bit off right there, but I don't want to leave too much paint on this canvas. And again, I'm going to bring the weight of the paint back to center. And then I will focus on my composition, where I want my focal point to be sitting. Because this is not a square or a round canvas, I don't want my focal point to be sitting in the center. I like to use the rule of thirds. All right. So this is going to be the focal point. This is what the eye is being drawn to, kind of swirling up into there. So I'm almost there, almost rocking that rule of thirds. I'm just gonna push it just a little bit. Okay. Okay. Well, I think that looks good to me. I love how these colors have blended. I love what's going on in there. All right, well, I'm gonna let this sit and do what it's gonna do. I will probably have more cells popping up as it sits. Hopefully I get to keep some of that background color. All right, I'm gonna let this sit and I'll bring you in for a close-up back in a few. Okay, here it is. It has been sitting for a while. The edges, as you can see, have already started to dry, so I don't anticipate any more changes taking place, more cells popping up, but the sides look good, as you can see. The cells are gorgeous. The blending, I love it. I got the lit from within effect that I like to go for. Tucker has the zoomies. The blending in this is really pretty. Very happy with how this turned out. That background color is drying beautifully. Really, I'm loving some of the banding that's going on in between there. It's very soft and subtle, but it just adds some depth to it. And I won't know until it is dry and really until it's varnished how the pigments might show up. You'll see it a little bit when it's dry, but once it's varnished, that's when it really has its most blinging power. I can definitely see some right in there. So there it is. Oh, that looks like a sleeping dolphin. The cats are chasing each other. They like to wait until I'm filming to do that. But that's it. That's what happened. There it is. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. If you did, please do like, share, and subscribe. If you're subscribed, make sure you click that bell so you are receiving notifications of my new uploads. Only a fraction of a percentage of my views are coming from subscribers. Something is amiss, and I don't know who to talk to about that. Check out the description box below for links to my affiliates, DecoArt being one of them. Grab yourself some of those gorgeous DecoArt cell-making beauties. And there's a coupon code there for that, as well as some other wonderful companies like Fluid Art Company, where I got this little Piggy Pigments, and many of those affiliate links. If you make a purchase, I receive a commission at no additional cost to you. Oh, hello, Satchmo. Also in the description box, you will find the link to my website, GinaDeLuca.net, where you can find my art and music and the Fluid Art inspiration cards for sale. And you'll also find the link to our Facebook group. Go make some art. Join us there. Post your masterpieces. Ask your questions. Get some inspiration. A good time is had by most. It is the internet after all. There are some really cool looking cells going on in here. That looks like some kind of vortex. Neato. Got a few of those. I really like how this piece turned out. Is there anything else? Did I forget something? Probably. I usually do. It's just my brain, how it works. It forgets things. Alright. I'm gonna say that's it for me for today. And I hope you have a beautiful day. Go make some art.